All right, welcome everybody to DistrictCon Year 1, the Junkyard. I am your Master of Ceremonies, Mark Griffin, founder of Undaunted Development, and with us for judges, we have Tracy from Interrupt Labs, Casey from Bug Crowd, and George from Vigilant. Thank you. So if you don't know why you're here, bless you for showing up anyways. But in case you're not familiar with some of the details of why we even have Junkyard at DistrictCon, it's because it fits with what we're trying to do here. As we all know, hacking can be a very serious topic at times, but it's also a very fun topic, and that's what we're trying to bring back. Hacking for the sake of hacking because it's fun, because we discover and learn things. We are taking the practices that we've seen in the community, like pwn-to-own style competition. We like those things, but we wanted to have something that was lower stakes, not as much pressure, more accessible to junior researchers or people that otherwise would not be in the competition for things like pwn-to-own. We also picked end-of-life targets and require responsible disclosure because, one, if you're going to do this kind of research where we're going to have live demos of vulnerabilities being exploited, this is pretty much the most responsible way to do it. So following best practices there. And also, it's kind of an interesting thing that a lot of people forget about with security, is that there's all these devices out there. Thanks to the Internet of Things, they're still out there, but not being supported. And also, end-of-life devices, we found that it gets people to focus on more fun or interesting targets. So, you won't see a Tesla on stage, but you might see a toaster or a lawnmower, and we think that's more fun. So in terms of how the competition is structured, what's in scope, any software or hardware that a vendor no longer supports, we do require mandatory responsible disclosure to the vendor before anybody is allowed to present, and we will have presentations on stage talking about the research, what's interesting about it, and doing a demo of the vulnerability. In terms of judging, we've got judges who are experts in the field, and they are going to be following a rubric, but in general, there are 3 categories: the most impactful system, the best meme target, and the most engaging presentation. And the first and second place for each of those categories will get cash prizes. All of the teams that are participating this year will receive a 1-year license for Hexarray's IDA Pro, and the winners of each category will also win a free course of their choosing from their advanced IDA courses online. We also have Bug Crowd supplying 3 prize packs and a variety of additional gifts and swag for presenters. So, without further ado, we're going to kick it off, DistrictCon Year 1, the Junkyard, with noperator, showing us what is love.
Woo!
All right, 1, 2, 3. Is my audio okay? All right. Well, I am pumped to kick off the Junkyard today. Let me get plugged in, get set up. All right, you all have my my screen. There we go.
There we go. Yes, sir.
Okay. What's up, DC?
What's up?
They say that you should save the best for last, so it makes sense that I'm going first. We're going to talk about a vulnerability that I found in this IoT device. I'm going to walk you through the bug and also through my process. Let's go ahead and get started. This is a Wattbox. If you haven't heard of it, it's a surge protector with an IP address. It has a few extra bells and whistles. My first thought when I saw this thing was like, I don't know if this is something that was meant to ever exist. But I guess it makes sense, right? If you want to remotely power cycle your devices without being around it, then I suppose it would be useful. So I figured this would be a very interesting research target, because who wouldn't want to remotely flip on and off the outlets? If you look online, on Shodan, there's a couple hundred Wattboxes just connected directly to the internet. as these things go, it's a pretty mild exposure, but still impactful. Let's lay out our goals here. Ideally, we will find a simple vulnerability that is simple to exploit, because that will ideally also make it stable once it's exploited. We want to root the device so that we can, in turn, control the outlets and turn them on and off. Now, when we start looking at this device that's plugged into the network, run a quick Nmap scan, and we'll see there are a few standard ports listening: SSH, Telnet, HTTP. If you log in through the web UI, which has default credentials, Wattbox, then you will see a pretty standard looking like IoT device. So at this point, if you've ever messed around with these kind of things, you might think, well, maybe we can start injecting, try to get command injection inside of a ping field or some kind of input field. But rather than just blindly dropping in payloads and trying to get code execution, we're going to go the more thorough route and pull the firmware. And I want to detail this because this is often one of the most significant barriers to entry for someone trying to research a device like this. So the first thing to do here is just go to the vendor website. If we log in, there's no clear list of firmware to be downloaded. But if you open up the front end, go into Chrome DevTools, and just search around for calls to some kind of firmware endpoint, we do see that there's this firmware.js that is loaded in the front end. If we browse through it, we see it mentions a v1 firmware endpoint that isn't actually called, but it is mentioned. So we can then go and grab a known good API call, copy it as curl, and this is what it looks like. It's calling the MyDetails endpoint, but we can swap that out for the v1 firmware endpoint. And once we start massaging the request a bit, so we're giving it everything it's expecting, we see it gives us an S3 link to download the firmware. So we're on the right track. When we download that firmware, we see there's a compressed kernel image when we bin walk it. If we decompress it, we see that there's a decompressed CPIO archive. If we extract it, we see an offline version of the same file system that is running on this device right now. Now, at this point, what I will point out is many IoT devices bake all of their most significant functionality, typically into a single monolithic binary. So in this case, following that very simple heuristic, I just looked for the biggest file on the file system, and there's a 55 meg file called runtime. It's a MIPS executable. So if we drop it into Ghidra, here's the methodology. I wanted to see if there are any clear calls to something that would spawn a shell. Some kind of sync that might accept my untrusted input coming somewhere from the web UI, because this is the typical path for devices like these. If we look in Ghidra for references to the system function, we will see, 20 or so functions that all seem to invoke system. And there's one in particular I looked at called land set hostname, which seems to be exactly what it is, which is something that takes untrusted input from an attacker, interpolates it directly into a string, and passes it to the system function, which spawns a shell. That's a clear path to command execution. If we look back in the web UI, that's exactly what we see. There's a spot to drop in a host name. There is a bit of client-side input validation, so they restrict the characters you can put into alphanumeric characters, but that's super easily bypassed because you can just delete that in the DOM. So I got rid of that, and now we're going to drop in the date command wrapped in backtick. So what that's going to do is drop the date command, interpolate it into that string, and ideally, when it executes, it resolves the value of the date command, and that's what we see in the host name. So we got remote code execution, which is cool, right? This is a Wattbox. And you can see if we go ahead and switch over to the camera view, I've got a bit going on here because I want to demonstrate the impact of what can you do uniquely if you can get remote code execution on a Wattbox. So I'm going to switch over, and what we see here is this is the live web UI. I'm logged into this thing, and if I go over to the configure IP settings, then here's the same view I was showing you before. I'm going to take a payload. I'm going to take several, actually. The first one is going to turn on these outlets that have a couple things plugged into them that are kind of related to the namesake of this talk. And we're at Disco, aren't we? And so it's going to turn on the outlets.
2-minute warning.
Then I'm going to demonstrate interactive code execution on the device, and then we're going to wrap it up. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the client-side validation here. And I'm going to switch this on. And then if all goes well, but that's not all. Oh no, that is not all. So if we go back in here, we're going to drop in another payload to set the root password, which allows us to then log in as root, and then we can turn off the outlets. And you will note, once this web UI comes back up, that it looks like the outlets are still on because we turned them off directly bypassing the web UI. Now, if you've been around for a minute, I should not have to tell you that if we have control over the device and can manipulate the utilities attached to it while making the operator believe that they're all still on, bad things can happen, right? So hey, thank you so much. That's the Vuln. Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you, noperator. We'll have a brief moment for judges to have any questions or comments, and then we'll bring the next speaker up.
Yeah, just a comment to say thank you for walking us through each step. It was awesome to see even the small steps and progressing through that, so excellent presentation.
Yeah, that was super fun, and I actually don't know if I'm relieved or a little let down that I didn't see anything catch fire. So I'm very curious.
I was waiting for fire as well.
Yeah, what type of controls might be in there that you can override, which might be fun.
I will say this Wattbox has been through a lot.
I believe you, yeah.
I'm glad it worked.
Again, like great presentation. Love the disco ball. It's always fun to have a disco kind of interstitial in an exploit demo. You mentioned bad things. Like what kind of bad things? Let's get creative for a sec.
Yeah. So I mean, this device can fit in a server rack. I mean, you can use it anywhere to basically power cycle devices. So that's typically going to be a lot of like network equipment. So if you can shut down the network equipment, but make the remote administrator believe it's all turned on, it totally depends, right? The impact depends on what's attached to it. So it's really as creative and as like business critical as you want to get in attaching this stuff, then that's how far the impact can go.
So I imagine that going through this process was, you had a lot of trials potentially. So we saw what success looked like. Can you tell us a fun, maybe not such a success on the way to the win?
I mean, so this whole like speaker system and the relay and everything was super trigger sensitive. That's not unique to the device itself, but that took a lot of work. I'll also say I had to go through, even this morning.
Case in point.
Perfectly on cue.
Even this morning I was having to factory reset the device over and over because when you're directly manipulating the status of the outlets, like directly with the device, it just kind of screws things up. So yeah, I'm glad.
Just enjoy this moment, shall we?
All right, thank you, noperator.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And as we're getting set up here, our next presenter is Rootbox by Will Gibbs.
Yes, correct. Oh, that's a good sound.
I do want to say the power bank was a nice throwback to last year's Junkyard.
Yeah, for those of us that didn't join us last year, we did a very similar setup, except we didn't get to use two tables to swap people out. We had to because we had no power and everybody was plugged into these big...
It was a lot darker than it is right now, too.
That works.
Yes.
As long as you, yeah. Perfect.
But we're enjoying light mode, huh? No?
There you go.
Winona definitely prefers light mode, but...
There you go. You got to turn the AC on, folks. That's how you get the power. We like power. Am I good to go, guys? Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for coming to the talk. Rootbox. Real quick, my name's Will Gibbs, recent CEO of Artificial. We do really cool automated triaging stuff. PhD student at ASU CEFCOM. Also, Shellfish Captain Emeritus, like 5 years or so. And then I was our AICC, AI Cyber Challenge Captain for 2 years. But this talk isn't about me. This talk is about our target, the Netgear AC1450. It's a office router and is like every other Netgear router. In fact, if you look very closely, if you take a look at the front, and then you take a look at the back, you can notice that it's unremarkable. In fact, it's remarkably unremarkable. What I want to talk today about is really not this Netgear in particular, but finding bugs in Netgears like it or other router bugs automatically, no AI included. Good, hard, fast, traditional program analysis. But for the type of bugs that we want to find, we need to figure out how we end up there, how we get there, right? You log into your router, you come into a slot, or you come into a page like this, and I know all you guys are technical users, so we go to the Advanced tab. We're advanced. We have stuff to do. We have things to change. And in the Advanced tab, you come across different fields you can set, right? Like a static IP address. We saw a great bug just happen with some of these fields. So knowing this, knowing where our user entry point is, we can expand out a little bit from here. And something to note is what happens when you set these fields in these routers, right? Routers use generally something like NVRAM or non-volatile RAM to set these config values. And this comes in the frame of their custom like NVRAM set, ACOS NVRAM set, but really it's just a key value store, right? You put a value in, you get a value out later, but the point is that this persists between boots, right? So that you don't need to reset up your router every single time. And you end up with the NVRAM config, maybe something like this, where you have a bunch of different values in it, right? But who cares about that? Inside your router, you have your front-end files. You have your HTML, ASP, PHP, JS. Those send keywords to what is like a border binary, right? Like an HTTPD, some server that processes these things, right? In this case, we'll take a look at our IPv6. You can see we send IPv6 static IP to the backend. What's important here is that there's a name, right? There's a string that denotes, hey, this is the value that I'm sending. We can figure out, or we can take a look at these front-end files and parse it and say, hey, I care about this value being sent, and we track it. HTTPD then takes these values and sets it using our NVRAM, right, so that they persist, so that it's good, so we don't have to do a bunch of work, and that's fantastic. And that looks something a little bit like this, where usually all these things have different custom parsers for the get parameters, what have you. But it gets it, and then it takes it, and it sets it. Really very simple. Now, the problem, though, is HTTPD sets this, and then other binaries use this, right? Normally, things that you can't access, normally you'd think that, oh, my boundary is just being able to interact with this one binary. But your input goes further than you may think, right? You can go 2 or 3 different binaries or levels deeper as it calls these different things. And do you guys know what time it is right now? It's mango time. Right? I know you were all thinking this. And why is it mango time, you ask? Good question. 2024, 2 years ago, wrote a cool paper, published at Usenix, Operation Mango, about finding these vulnerabilities, right? About finding these data flows, analyzing it with super cool, fast static analysis, what have you. You can read the paper if you're interested. That doesn't matter. What does matter is that we found hundreds of bugs in, dozens of different routers of end-of-life devices like this. And it's actually pretty fast. I got a quick demo here where you can see in Mango, we load the binary, all using Anger, by the way, the open source binary analysis framework. We run it, and then all of a sudden, Mango starts working. We're looking for these command injections. Shit's popping up on the screens. You know it's important because it says critical, right? We all like critical. But you can see here, really what we do is we just do fancy string resolution and propagation of these values. We can see that we have stuff coming from like IPv6 WAN IP at our old. We can see it comes from, different HTML files. And so doing this, you can really provide a scalable solution for finding bugs in kind of any router that follows this framework. So let's follow back to our static IP address, because you guys are here to see an exploit. Well, if we enter in an input into our IPv6 static, right, That flows down into our HTTPD, right? But that's pretty benign. After that, we get to our ACOS service binary, which does, I actually don't really know. But it does this, and that's important. You can see here in the highlighted that our value from of ACOS NVRAM set from IPv6 static IP is sprintf'd and then used directly in system. But that's not all, folks. We have a bonus bug. We have a stir copy, an unbounded buffer, and from our HTTP input get, we get it into like a 2048 buffer, and then so you have a buffer overflow if you want. But we have a double bonus bug because the sprintf is also unbounded. So if you wanted, you could double buffer overflow and then ultimately execute whatever system call you want. But I'm lazy, so we only do the command injection here. And if I'm very, very quick and switch my Wi-Fi, I'm speed of lightning. And I'm praying that we connect, and I don't hit the cancel button by accident. It should come up here pretty quick. We can pray. So, of course, everything has default creds, right? Because all these routers have online accessible default creds, which is great. And hopefully, oh, okay, we're connected, we're connected. Also, something to note is you can do fancy stuff like wget into, retrieve whatever your shell script is, reverse proxy, what have you. But Netgear routers are great because they have telnet by default. We have a slight problem in doing the exploit, but don't worry because there's the x.backup.py. And if I remember, we do x.backup.py, and it doesn't like that. Why doesn't it like that? Do we have? Oh, okay, we're connecting to the router. The router's connected. We go to our advanced setup because we're advanced users. We go to our IPv6. Okay. We have a telnet D up. It really is unfortunate. What are we doing? Telnet .1.1. It doesn't like that. We run the backup exploit one more time, and we reboot the router.
Judges, while he's troubleshooting this, do you have any comments you want to share?
I appreciated the double bonus. I was expecting a double buffer overflow all the way situation. But I saw that the sprintf was a more direct path.
It is a more direct path. That's the sneaky one. You never expect the sprintf, but it is there. It is there. We're hoping as soon as this button turns green, that Netgear will pop back alive. I can reconnect to the Wi-Fi there as soon as it comes.
I was enjoying the run through of the exploit, like the vuln discovery process, but now I'm enjoying the run through of the exploit troubleshooting process.
Yeah, this feels really real.
This is great.
This is a very real situation, folks. You guys will
In the life.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. We have stuff online.
All right, we've got one more minute.
Don't worry, because it'll work this time. We try our best.
Good effort.
Well, in that case, I'm just going to have you folks believe me that envision this is flashing. This is flashing Morse code right now, I promise. But thank you all very much. Please check out Operation Mango. Check out all the stuff I've done. It's really cool. Thank you all.
That's a good effort, Will. I thanks for showing us live what a day in the process is like all the time. Thanks for being a good sport.
You win some, you lose some, but we all know that the routers lose in the end, and that's the important part.
Thank you, Will. Anybody who's done this for a while knows that is all too real, and that happens.
That's why we need the IP powered on devices.
There you go. Yeah.
Every time I mess something,
Power cycle.
There we go.
power cycle it. Especially if it's persistent.
And our next presenter, Jordan 9001 and Drone with General Graboids.
Go ahead, man.
Hi, welcome.
Can we get his mic on? General Graboids was fun.
Hello? Man?
Go ahead.
All right. Hi. I'm Brian. If anyone gets the Graboids reference, then +1 to you. If you haven't
Arrow keys.
identified it yet, our target is Command and Conquer Generals. If you're not familiar with the series, this is an RTS that was popular in the mid-90s. Generals was the latest and the last iteration in the series, came out in 2003. We got the source code last February from EA Games. So that was our target and our starting point. So Command & Conquer Generals is an online game with single-player components, of course. It supports LAN play as well as GameSpy, if anyone remembers GameSpy, which went defunct in 2014. So right now, the only way to play it is either local LAN or using some third-party VPN software. So kind of a high-level overview of what the infrastructure for this thing looks like. It's a UDP-based protocol. The players connect to a lobby, and the lobby opens up a local port on 8086. This is the kind of lobby port where lobby traffic comes from, so it's kind of like metadata about the game, so players joining, players leaving, messages, that sort of stuff. And it's not until you actually start the game that the game port opens up. And that's on 8080, so this whole time you have 8086 available and you have 8080 available. Both are transmitting information. So really brief, high-level overview of what some of these packets look like. So on the top left there, if you can see that, hopefully you can, it's basically there's a 6-byte structure that's kind of mandatory for each packet, 4-byte CRC, and then a 2-byte magic food header. And then kind of the subsequent layers with it there that are recursively parsed, just feature command types and data types and that sort of thing. And both the game port and the lobby port receive these messages. The game port obviously receives state updates for player positioning and that sort of thing. Bottom right there is kind of an example packet. So this is the net command type file packet. What's kind of interesting here is every packet is exclusive ORed. I don't know why they do that, but for maximum security, they use a hard-coded key. So let's see. So disclosure, do you want to?
Yeah, we disclosed to EA, and they confirmed that it's a legacy game. They're not touching it. They were very kind, though. We didn't want to just destroy everything. There's actually a pretty cool community around this game still. There's Twitch streamers with thousands of viewers that play exclusively this game. So we didn't want to just drop this and run. We reached out to the community, and they were super great. They have their own patch set that they've been compiling, and very quickly worked with us to get patches out for this. So it was awesome.
All right. So really briefly, as you can maybe imagine, there was a lot of bugs, a lot of attack surface here. While there is encryption, quote unquote, encoding, there is no authentication or authorization or any of that sort of stuff. So as long as you can gain access to the 8086 or 8080 ports exposed, either on the local network or via these VPN connectors, you can send packets to players that are either in a lobby or in a game and access some of these handlers. So the game lobby port, you can send a number of different meta packets. There's one in particular that is the net file message, and this is the handler for that. So each packet type has a function that handles it, and there's a big gross switch statement that handles hundreds of these things, as I'm sure all of you are familiar with. So this one, if you've ever seen stir copy before, that's basically stir copy. File name is a max path static buffer there, and then the data that's passed into this function comes from the net packet that it receives. So it's a pretty trivial vanilla stack-based buffer overflow. That was the first bug that we found, and I should mention that when the source code came out for this, we started kind of figuring out interesting ways in which we could fuzz the network layer and kind of if we could pull out the source code and compile it independently without all the proprietary models and textures and stuff that they don't have. But we spent about 2 hours in the source code and all sorts of things fell out. So that was pretty cool to see, this being one of the first ones that we saw. In the actual file announce, and these files, I should also say, are custom map files. So if you start a server and you built your own map or you downloaded a map from somewhere, you can serve it to everybody who joins your lobby to play in the game. This is a file announce handler. And this one was really awesome because we didn't need to do any memory corruption or deal with any of that stuff. They literally take a file name and some binary data, and they write it to wherever you want. So anywhere that Command and Conquer General's executable or process can write files to, it can write a file there. And then the third bug, this is one that we didn't actually pursue, but we thought it was kind of interesting. There's a kind of a robust fragmentation infrastructure in the networking code where if a packet exceeds a certain size, then you can fragment it and you can chunk it up into any number of hundreds of different packets, and then it'll reassemble it on the player's game side. But you can control in this reassembly process, you can control the offset in which it writes the packet into the buffer, you can control the length of it, and then you can control the data. So this is a pretty vanilla and static memcopy in another heap-based buffer overflow.
Cool. So we found the bugs pretty quickly. We figured we could spend a little time making some fun exploitation. And while the game itself was nostalgic, I think writing the actual exploits was even more nostalgic because it's all 32-bit. A lot of the modules didn't have ASLR. And so a bunch of fun gadgets we could use. The constraints were our initial ROP chain had to be null-free, and so we had a little one that pivoted to our other ROP chain that would then load the shell code and pop Notepad or whatever you would want. And then we also cleaned up so that the little army men running around on the screen didn't even know what hit them. And we can actually pray to the live demo gods. I'm VPN'd in like 5 proxies, so they'll never catch me. We're gonna start a game here really quick. And then we're going to throw some of these. All right, here I am. I got my little guy. I can tell him to do things. And just being on the same network at any point, I can throw this ROP, and here we get Wine's version of Notepad, and the game is none the wiser. But wait, there's more. So that was fun, but we also had these other bugs. We wanted to have persistence, and this is a wormable bug. So we wanted to actually create a worm and be very careful not to play online with any of our friends while we were developing this. So the idea being we can use that just logical file error to drop a DLL that will get loaded on load time, and then we can also use our ROP to load it right away. But within that DLL, we have a bunch of interesting hooks on the network routines and a bunch of magic packet handling so that we can handle arbitrary, malicious packets from our command and control server to say, hey, go ahead and delete all of their units. Go ahead and do all these things. Or run OS commands and such. And it also detects when they connect to another peer, and it goes ahead and it infects away. So there are plenty of times debugging this where I was like, I didn't realize that, oh, I'm infected again. I need to clean my whole network and then maybe start from the beginning.
Just to call out the debug help DLL, we had to call it that file because every time you restart a Command and Conquer, it's going to look for that file, that DLL to load. So we had persistence there on that, and then we were able to hook the socket receive from APIs in the WSOC32. And then we got a quick demo of the worm, and it's spreading.
Yeah. Okay. So first, now we're going to infect this same game. We're going to infect it, load that DLL. Shouldn't see anything crazy happen, but now it is listening for those magic packets, and we can send one to say, just delete all of their buildings. And it automatically starts deleting everything. You see here it says infected. Let's get a second player in here. Oh no, I'm defeated. Give me a second. Okay, so we'll exit that one. We're going to create a new game and bring player 2 in.
Any Command and Conquer Generals fans in the house?
Woo!
Woo! This is so much fun.
I've literally never seen this.
So much fun.
Sorry.
All right, so now if you look very carefully, as soon as this game starts, you should see nothing. But player 2 is now infected. Yay! And so player 2 is also listening now for those magic packets, and we should be able to send those magic packets to both of these. We'll tell them to display some text, contagious, infected, pop a shell, or notepad in this case. And that's it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Nice.
That was so fun, Brian and Jordan. I appreciated the nostalgia, both of the exploitation and the game. It's fun. I enjoy having LAN parties at my place, so you've given me a ton of fun ideas. So super fun. I'm curious, with the process context in which you land, have you thought about any of the mitigations that are in that process context? Any further things that you could do in that security context?
Yeah, it's just it's using WowSys 64, right? So it's a 32-bit process on Windows. It's running as whatever user started the game. So no special mitigations, nothing there. Plenty of DLLs that didn't have ASLR. A couple of them did, but what you would expect from an old legacy game being run on Steam.
Super fun, super fun.
Yeah, that was super fun. The only thing I'm trying to wrap my head around is what is an actual use case of being able to just like run another file from wherever you want it to be. No idea.
Why is that there?
Like why does that exist in like normal use case?
It's in all sorts of game engines though. Like going
This
back
is
to
the
Quake
thing
and
about me
stuff.
not knowing anything about games. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I think it's a problem, but even all these legacy FPS engines built on Quake, CS2, all that, they all still support file commands for sending over files, even when you're not in some kind of modded lobby.
Because reasons. So you guys do a bit of this kind of game RE, or is this kind of the first time you've run through something?
This is one of the first times for me.
Yeah.
And mostly jumped into it because of the source code was available. So that was a lot of fun to look through.
But yeah, just asking because the whole idea of the community coming in and actually patching the thing
Yeah.
in lieu of the vendor, that's not something that happens.
Yeah, it was really cool of them. Yeah, so shout out to them.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. And with that, we're going to take our first break. So we're going to have a 10-minute break, and we will reconvene at 2:55. Thank you. What a polite crowd. I got to say, DistrictCon has the best people. Best crowd. All right, and now we're back. And joining us is Exodus, presenting Twisted Ladder.
All right, thank you guys. Welcome, Exodus. All right, I'm gonna put slides up and let's get started. All right, thank you guys all for coming. I know the snow's been like an issue, but you guys are all here, so great. So actually, this presentation is not primarily done by me. This is actually, where's my mouse? Oh, there we are. This presentation is primarily done by my coworker, Axel. He's unfortunately not able to come here today, but big shout out to him, big shout out to all of the work that he put in with this target. Yeah, let's go. And he's watching somewhere, so yeah. Hopefully I don't butcher this, but yeah. So the target today is called a Thermo Fisher Ion Torrent One Touch 2. Basically, it is a DNA protein sequencer you can use in a lab environment for DNA polymerization. I'm not even going to pretend to know what that is and how to explain it, but all I know is like this device is really important for people who work with DNA. It was end of life 2023, posted by Thermo Fisher, and our presentation today will focus not one but two RCE vulnerabilities if you are on the same network as the sequencer. So next slide. So really quickly, why do we even care about equipment like this? Even though the sequencer is kind of an exotic target, it's still kind of the same old story with like a lot of critical targets. They're very mission critical, but they're on a network. The code is probably super fragile, and it's likely ELL for a long period of time because people, like it's really expensive to like replace it. And of course, like the impact of compromise on this is pretty high because you know you're getting like lab data, health data, and all of that stuff. And you're also able to, you know, pose some life-threatening risks. So, like we at Trailabits, we're also really interested in the novel research around this space, which is one of the reasons why we're funded under Andrew Carney's R/H program to build systems that autonomously find these bugs and also like remediate them at scale, especially in like manufacturer firmware. Feel free to check out that link, that program, for more details. Yeah, so let's talk about the bugs. The first one, this is my only contribution to this project. There's default credentials on this thing, and all I did was guess this. Yeah, So if you come across this on the internet, it's root ion admin. If you wanted some hints, you can use like SourceGraph. There's like a software like stack associated with this, and you'll just see like the password like littered everywhere. So I mean, I guess we're gonna do a demo of it real quickly. You guys have never seen it. It's also a good litmus test because I don't know if we're connected to the damn thing. Yeah. Other. Split screen.
I had a lot of question marks here because I was like, I have no idea what this device is. I'm very excited to figure it out.
Okay. All right. Actually, we should just skip that part. I can't copy the command, but we'll forget about it. But nevertheless, like this thing is oops, desktop, like logistics. Sorry, where's my mouse? I'm trying to figure this out.
The old black on black problem.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay, I'll just move on to the next one. But basically, this is the one that Axel contributed, and this is a X11 RCE. Basically, there is an X11 server on port 6000, and based on the configuration, it allows connections by that IP from default. But it turns out there is something called DHCP, and you can assign yourself that IP address. So that little check that's like kind of put in there just to make sure that you're from a certain IP is really easy to beat. And that's exactly what Axel ended up kind of looking for within the configuration. So first in the configuration, you can kind of see interfaces set to that by default. When the display server spawn, it's going to listen for connections there. Interface is updated when a new lease is obtained or when an existing lease is renewed. And basically, one of the things that was done was Axel took a look at Xorg Server 11 itself. It turned out that based on the configuration, it looked like any IP that was assigned to the device will be allowed as a allowed X11 client source. Basically the idea is like if the interface IP changes and the X host itself has no like updates to the ACL, and after that the X11 server still then allows for that released IP to be used. And this kind of creates a gap between the interface's IP and the X host ACL. You can kind of see, that's not really a demo, but it's kind of like the UI that's kind of presented. This is the X11 server itself, rendering like the, some of the functionality for the protein sequencer. And kind of the idea with this X11 server is actually using something called Matchbox Desktop. Basically, the idea is like there are several kind of root windows that are associated with that particular UI that you saw earlier. And those are the IDs associated with it. You can see the different labels and peripherals and whatnot like attached to it. And basically the idea with the exploit is to kind of close out all of the windows, right? Like you can kind of envision like you're dragging a mouse and you're like clicking like the X button on the window and stuff like that. This is kind of what the exploit is like kind of simulating a little bit once it connects over to the X11 server. So yeah, like once you're able to like start simulating behaviors, you can kind of like exit out the screen and you can see like you have a whole like desktop manager itself. You have things like a calculator, the terminal, pretty sure there's Tetris on this thing. Yeah. Let's do the real world proof of concept now.
2-minute warning.
Minute warning? Perfect. My mouse like...
I stand corrected. 4-minute warning.
Oh. Okay. So, start a netcat handler here. And hope it works. Oh. On the same network, yep. Okay, we might have to restart this thing.
This happens a lot more than you'd think. Last year we saw a lot of this too.
All right, questions maybe from the judges while we're waiting, I guess?
Yeah, so I think it's an awesome target device, really cool. When you mentioned leaking health data and life-threatening risks, I'm thinking about the specific, when you pop a shell on the Matchbox desktop, right? Some of the things that you could do. Is there opportunity here for like spoofing incorrect sequencing data, and maybe that being a risk in that way, or exfiltration, or have you thought about things like that?
Yeah, that's absolutely something that you can do. On the sequencer itself, like it's the whole the purpose of it is to process like sequences of proteins. So during that like transit, I guess like you can certainly kind of do what you want to do with the process. Again, I'm not a biomedical engineer, so
you're doing great.
Not too much. Yeah.
I'm not a lawyer / biomedical engineer. That's a first. Yeah, that's like the idea of this being privacy critical and safety critical at the same time is pretty wild. And like even though this thing was EOL in 2023, it'd be safe to guess that there's still a ton of them out there in labs, right? Rhetorical
Okay,
question.
things are not working.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually, you mentioned the ARPA-H program. That's one of the big problems that they had. One of the reasons why they were funding stuff like that is because there was such a problem with medical devices being end of life. So it's actually really outstanding to see one here.
They're really expensive, they're really hard to maintain, and really hard to like get people up to speed on new things. So I imagine there's a ton of legacy devices, and I'm kind of curious about default passwords and creds in general on these devices on newer models or other related things that might be by the same vendor to have similar vulnerabilities.
Yeah, that would be fun to do.
Fun and terrifying.
Fun in the, conference
Theoretical sense, yeah.
Yeah, there is actually a little bit of interesting research that's out there because of this recent investment, vulnerability details. It's sobering material.
Funny thing about these as well, like if you go to a clinic in like a less wealthy country, for example, like the age of the stuff that's out there, because they'll end up buying this stuff bulk secondhand. Without necessarily, the ability to patch it or, IT teams to do that stuff. So, and back to what you said before, Andrew's work around auto patching, it's kind of important.
This thing? Yeah. Oh, $200.
That's the
On
eBay
eBay?
price tag.
eBay, yeah. The board itself is more expensive, like if you want to buy like individual components. But yeah, it's like $200. Okay, so the exploit is not working at the current moment, and I do not have the demo video to back up for this. So maybe we got to transition to the next one. My bad. But yeah.
All right. Any last questions for the judges? Because Exodus, I think we have you up for another presentation
Yep, that's correct.
next. Yes.
Yeah.
It was
It's gonna work this
a
time.
doubleheader.
I'm just going to say, like,
Okay.
step it in for someone else, running through it, troubleshooting as someone who didn't do the research yourself, like, props, man. Like, that's a hard thing to do on stage, so
Thank you.
appreciate it. Big respect.
Better luck next time. We'll see.
And if you're watching this, Axel, great work, man.
Okay, so I guess we can do the next one.
Yeah.
Well,
Next
okay.
presentation, Counting Chaos.
Yeah, we're not able to connect to it, so we'll turn this off for now. It's kind of loud. All right. Can I get this screen back up there?
The dulcet tones of my papers ruffling.
I do need to change the network configuration, which is a little annoying. Sorry. One sec.
Look, last year, Casey did dance for the audience.
This is true.
I was promised dancing.
You're not going to get it.
Gotta get the disco ball up.
While we're waiting,
I was out of breath for about 20 minutes after that because Jitsy's a fiend. The guy who actually did the Dance Dance Revolution exploit, he's like, the reason he was interested in that particular target is because he's a ninja at that stuff. So keeping up was a lot of fun.
All right. Do you need some notes for this, bud?
You guys really want to see me dance, don't you?
All right. So I'm back again.
Hey!
This is mine. Okay, so this one we're gonna have a little bit more fun with, hopefully. I kind of like, in the beginning, I really liked this bug, but exploiting it, it's been really something else, and you guys will kind of understand the pains and the challenges with this bug. But basically, as you kind of alluded to a little bit, this is end-of-life Ubuntu. We're gonna be exploiting this today for local privilege escalation. So yeah, our goal today is to get local privesc on 1604, which is Xenio. Xenio ended its standard support around 5 years ago, but if you have something called Ubuntu Pro, you're covered for backported security patches until now it's 2035, basically as part of the ESM program. You kind of see the timeline for how things are kind of deprecated in the ecosystem. We'll also be attacking the server variant, which runs a GA kernel, which is going to be running as 4.4. The Linux kernel maintainers themselves also consider this end of life. So really nice for us. In the spirit of ELL hacking, we're going to be focusing on specific drivers that don't exist anymore on modern upstream kernels. And here's some different examples listed. That's not all of them, but some of them. The most interesting to me was traffic control. Traffic control, if you've done like kernel exploits before, really popular kind of target, sort of punching bag. A lot of people do like those cool RB tree related exploits with it. So it's definitely stood out to me for the research. I won't have like a lot of time to really deep dive traffic control. So this is going to be a really quick background. There are a lot of people that are so much smarter than I am. Some links on the bottom. But basically the idea is that traffic control manages package shaping and scheduling through the kernel, and queue disks or queuing disciplines are the heuristics for pretty much for when the transmission should be happening, and they're all attached to a network interface. So to interact with TC, we have to use netlink, which is kernel IPC, the new form of it. Specifically, you have to use that family. And the bug that we're exploiting today is in the now deleted ATM queue disk, which kind of helps shape how packets are received specifically by a socket family called ATM, or asynchronous transfer mode. And they have like this notion of a virtual circuit, and the queue disk kind of facilitates how the packets are being queued up. A little more complex, but this is like a really, really quick background for it. So let's discuss the bug itself. The vulnerability is a ref count mismanagement in a function called ATM-TC change. This ultimately leads to kernel use after free. To call this method, you'll need to send a particular netlink message that most importantly has these attributes over there. So that's your input, untrusted input. In that message, if you can set a TCA ATM access, this lookup is going to be done for an access flow. And if it's found, its reference count is going to go up by 1. At the second highlighted line, you can see that there's error handling happening, and we go down to the error out handle, the label. And that label, the decrement happens at that point because we need to clean up properly, right? So this is regular, normal error handling that should be happening. However, there is a case where there is error handling that's done incorrectly. If you pay attention to this other branch up there, this in the middle, the error handling is wrong because it's just returning. It's not taking out the label or taking the error out label, and that ref count decrement is not happening. And this happens if the TCA ATM FD attribute you set is not a valid like file descriptor to a socket. So like in my exploits, like 1337 or something. And as a result, if you keep spamming that message, it's going to trigger this error path, UN-max -1 times, and we can overflow that excess ref. Then if we trigger free again, that chunk gets freed, but it's still associated to a flow, and that makes it a dangling reference that we can then exploit. So let's quickly talk about kind of the exploit strategy that we try to use for this. Let's just focus on a couple of these steps. So we can first talk about how we want to refill that dangling pointer. So our target chunk is located anywhere in k-malloc 128 and up, and we choose to refill it with a popular setx attra and fuse attra technique. It's really nice because we can control the size and the contents of the allocation fully, but we do need a custom fuse file system that acts kind of like a blocking mechanism, because when the setx attra syscall happens, the allocation in the free happens in the same syscall path, which is not great for us. Right? We want that allocation to remain. Fuse acts like a blocking mechanism for it. And there's like some links down there to kind of talk about this technique a lot more. Very popular when you're used in as a way to do slap and shui. So once we refill that chunk, we need to corrupt the list head field in the target structs, because that can actually give us arbitrary write when it undergoes unlinking. And that's exactly what happens when we delete the flow again with a call to listdel init. Since we can fully control the prev and next pointer as it's part of the chunk, at an instruction level, you can kind of visualize it. We control RCECx and rdjgr fully. With this arbitrary write primitive, we can ultimately corrupt a global kernel variable called mopropath. This is, again, another very popular technique. You'll see a lot with arbitrary write exploits, data-only exploits, and corrupting this path variable with something you control allows it to execute with elevated privileges whenever like a bad binary format is run. So by setting the fields as seen here, we can corrupt the global to somewhere in tempfs, and then when we run a bad file that has like a bad header, the idea is like that path should be triggered and will run with full privileges. Of course, we gotta talk about the info leak because we don't know where mopropath is. On the GA kernel, funny enough, there is no KSLR. They have decided not to enable that for those kernels. However, our exploit will still try to accommodate for KSLR. So it turned out like for our bug, it is kind of hard to use it to leak out anything. And it didn't really give us a lot of useful primitives other than that free path. So ultimately, I opted to kind of cheat a little bit. We're on an older distro. We have some universal techniques. I opted to use that NDA. Really trivial kind of bug because we can kind of leak that address from a file we can just read easily. And it's like really old as well. One blocker I do want to talk about though is that this can take a really long time because overflowing a 32-bit ref count does require that number of increments. That's 4 billion with some extra right there. I've been trying to work this exploit to make it hit within the time frame, but the best runs right now are all plateauing at around 20 minutes. We will have a backup demo in place to showcase like how it is like when we do the patch. Basically, the patch, all it does is just turn that into a short. And with that said, let's do a demo. Okay. First, I need to see if I can connect to this thing because all of this stuff's like kind of screwed up right now.
Just a quick aside, if you enjoy this this talk, this write-up is actually in the Junkyard Frack magazine.
That is correct, yeah.
Find a copy near you.
Yeah, I enjoyed reading as well the post in the article in the magazine, and I love the shape of the bug as well because this class of vulnerability is also present on major platforms in general, where the shape is, hey, the developers aren't reasoning very carefully about the error condition, and so you enter into this weird state, and it's fun to see that the initial weird state led to an overflow. And so it's fun to see idea progression. Really cool.
Can I get the screen back? Any chance?
Yeah, I think that this bug has become a little bit less popular as 64-bit counters became.
Yes, that's right.
Yep.
I was like, oh, how long does this take?
That's why we have a patch.
Yep.
So I did run the exploit like before, but like it died. So we're gonna run the patch version though. So.
Thank you.
Fingers crossed. Whoa. Hold on. Correct.
For those of you in the audience, this is harrowing to do this as a researcher if you've never done this.
But yeah, as you can see, no KSLR slide. And then we're doing a spray. And in this case, we have a patch, so we're only going to... Oh, no.
Rooting for you, Exodus.
I think this is really safe, so we should be able to run it again if it failed.
This is why live demos are awesome, and I understand as a presenter why you want video to make sure you can show what you've done, but this is where the real test is.
Speaking of that, because this is not running, I have video.
Hey! See, that's being prepared.
All right. So same setup for this one. And first, we're going to have to add the patch in, like that turns the into short. And then we did what we just did earlier, and see the same exploit, no slide, spraying. And yeah, there, it's there. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's about it from my end. Some, I guess, lessons learned. Not all bugs are the same. Some are like really tough to exploit. This bug has been like 10% exploit engineering, 90% performance engineering. So that was a fun time to work through it. But yeah, thank you all for coming and listening to me for 2 talks. And yeah, questions from the judges?
Just one quick question. So I didn't quite catch it. If you mentioned it, if you run it without the patch and it fires, like what's the typical time frame you saw on that?
So I've been working on it. I got it down from like an hour to like 20 minutes.
Was there any limitations from like a network adjacency standpoint, anything like that, or?
I guess like the biggest bottleneck is how long the kernel is going to take to process the messages itself. So like we could theoretically use a lot of different core, like many cores, a lot of RAM, but it ultimately like it's not what when the kernel wants to process it. Yeah. Careful, careful. Oh. Yeah. All right.
Good save. All right, thank you, Exodus.
All right, thank you guys.
And up next, we have H2C2, Hackers Command and Control by gnomesec.
Sorry, that was a little...
That doesn't work, dude. Hi. Ooh. Can you guys hear me? Yes, no? Yes? Okay. Cool. Can I see what they see? Nothing? Awesome. Okay. I have... Okay, cool. I can deal with that.
Got him.
Okay, sweet. Hi, everybody. This is H2C2, Hacking Hackers Command and Control. Who am I? My name is Noam. Online, I go by gnomesec, and I'm a software engineer / security researcher out of Baltimore. My target today is Deimos C2. Deimos is a command and control framework written in Golang. But what is a C2? A C2 is the server an operator uses to orchestrate their cyber campaigns after initial exploitation. Operators will use it to task their implants in the hopes of exfiltrating data, retaining persistent access, and moving laterally. Deimos was developed and open sourced by ParagonSec, Charles Dardeman, developer Ruse, and Blaise Brignac. It was initially developed for their red team engagements, but just like most good offensive tools, it has reached an unintended audience. 2022 was a really big year for Deimos. Cybersecurity company Census reported Deimos was used in Russian ransomware campaigns. The same year, NSA attributed its use to the Lazarus Group, a North Korean threat actor known for their billion-dollar heists. But why should you care? Hackers hacking each other is probably the oldest tradition in hacking. First, if you're a red teamer and you're actively using Deimos in an engagement, you should probably stop. Personally, I would hate to be on the client call telling them, hey, so the engagement's going really great, we got domain admin, we put down an implant, but we got popped. So not only did they get anything we exfiltrated off your network, but they also have any access we had. Cool, thanks, bye. Click. Second, if you're in law enforcement, there's probably no better way to track a threat actor than this. I mean, you pretty much get a live stream of them doing crime. Finally, if you're in the IC, you get to piggyback off of someone else's hard work. Just wait for them to pwn their way through a network and take whatever you want. To exploit the C2, we need a few things. First, we need the public key of the listener, then we need the registration and the job endpoints. Luckily for us, these are all hard-coded in an implant. So if you have a sample of the malware that comes from the C2 you're trying to exploit, pretty trivial to get. The last thing we need is the UUID of a pivot agent. This is a little trickier because this only resides in the memory of an implant's process. Not impossible to get if you have a forensic image of that process, but this is actually only for my chain. If we use another researcher's chain with an unpatched bug as well, we don't need this. I'll talk a bit more about this later, though. Now let's talk about exploitation. I quickly found two bugs that seemed really promising. First, a semi-auth file upload bug, and second, a file execute bug. For the file upload bug, Deimos doesn't actually track if you're responding to a legitimate job. It also doesn't sanitize the file name. So you can pretend to be an implant responding to a non-existent download job, add a few // and you can write a file wherever you want. The second bug allows us to execute a file that's already on the C2. A feature of Deimos is its modularity. So when you first start Deimos, it'll spin up an RPC server listening on localhost. If an operator or developer wants to add functionality, they write two binaries. One that'll get executed on the C2 and will act as sort of the back end for this module, and another that gets sent down to the implant to be executed. So my exploitation strategy is pretty straightforward. Upload a binary to the C2 and tell it to execute. Easy peasy. Believe it or not, it wasn't easy peasy. So there's some challenges. Mostly, I lied to you, and the primitives are not as clean as I led you to believe. First, the file exec primitive is authenticated, so I need an auth bypass. Second, I can only execute binaries if they fall in this really specific path sequence. And even though I control the name of the binary, the fact that it reoccurs in the path really makes any // combination I could think of, it sort of nullifies itself. But if anyone has a cool solution to this, please come let me know. Third, every file gets a C2 server time appended to it. So disco.elf becomes disco_year_month_day_hour_minute_second.elf. Which means we need to find a way to leak the time on the C2 and do all the exploitation to converge in sort of that 1 second. I mean, at this point, what the hell? This is my first time actually doing VR. And on paper, I found some bugs that seem pretty cool, but they're just not enough to show impact on this product. So I go back to the code, and I find like 1.5-ish more bugs. So I find a directory create bug, and I heavily build off of JARM22 CVE 2025-26244, which was a reflected XSS. This is the bug I mentioned earlier. The XSS I exploit requires a pivot agent UUID, while JARM22's does not, probably making his the better of the two. Now, how does the XSS work? Deimos has a really cool graph view that allows you to see your mesh of pivot nodes and egress nodes. In practice, this allows operators to easily visualize their path in and out of a network. The XSS is injected in the implant's registration payload and is triggered when a user navigates to the graph view. My bug is in the pivot agents registration, while JARM22's is in the egress nodes registration. And for the graph view to render correctly, the pivot agent needs to know sort of what parent node to connect to. So that's why I need the UUID of the pivot agent. For the make directory bug, whenever a new listener is created, a UUID is generated, which will act as that listener's key. A directory is then created with that key to save things like looted files, TLS certs, and other resources. But if you call the edit command, it'll stop a listener, make the changes, and start a new listener with the key provided, never checking if it was ever a valid listener. So our key then gets passed to OS make directory, and a new directory is created. Before we can get code execution, we need to leak the times. First, we register a fake agent and inject our XSS into the metadata. We wait for an operator to navigate to the graph view and trigger the XSS. Once the XSS is executed, we have it reach out to the exploit server and trigger the rest of the exploit. Once the exploit server gets a callback, it'll mark its local time and upload a file to the C2, faking the completion of a download job. After the upload is complete, the exploit server will respond to the XSS callback. Upon receiving a response from the exploit server, the XSS payload will open a WebSocket connection to the C2, masquerading as an operator. The XSS will then send a list loot files command, which will return the name of all the looted files on the C2, including the canary file we just uploaded. After retrieving the XSS, it'll parse the time from the file name and send it back to the exploit server. And at this point, we've got some pretty good wins. We bypassed auth, and we've leaked the time on the C2. With all the files being uploaded and any network latency, it's really possible there's still some time drift. So, to deal with this, the exploit server and the XSS agree that 2 seconds into the future is when we want to get code execution on the C2.
4-minute warning.
Sounds good. Now we're ready to get RCE. Our XSS will send 3 make directory commands to build out the module directory structure we need, adding the timestamp of the agreed upon time. To combat any drift, we start uploading the binary 500 milliseconds before the time we agreed on, and then upload the payload 2 more times at 500 millisecond intervals, hoping one of the binaries will land in the directory we created. Finally, we send the execute module command and catch a callback. So now it's time for the demo. Oh, I should probably... Very cool. So that is the admin panel that, well, let's say you're Kim Jong-un, you want to fund a new missile or maybe a pallet of Hennessy or whatever it is you do as a despotic dictator. On my left here, we have the terminal we're going to be throwing the exploit from. Oh, nope. There you go. So down here, we see we have the UID of an agent. This gets assigned by the C2, so it's just sort of proof that it's all working out. We log in with our super secret admin. And then, oh, I can actually look here. That's way easier. So we see we got this really weird graph, and we get a callback. So we go check our agents. This is definitely not normal, an agent telling me what to do. So I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to go to my graph. And we get a callback. So the demo worked. Thank God. Cool. So, and this is in case the demo gods are not on my side, but we don't need that. And some quick thank yous. So Slavis69 for listening to this talk probably dozens of times. Ryan S., JL, and the FRAC team for making all this work presentable. And the Junkyard team for putting on a really cool event. And then, questions?
So I know the first thing that I was thinking of is there's often a lot of latency issues, and I know you directly addressed that. Yeah, I turned and I was like, so about that timestamp. Yeah, so that was a really interesting approach to it, and I guess I wouldn't mind hearing more about how you got to that 2 minutes and determined the 5 seconds 3 times was sufficient.
Like the 2 second sync? Or what do
You sent it -5 at the time agreed upon,
yeah.
and then +5. How'd you get to that number?
Vibes?
Just tried it. And
Yeah, it just worked the first time.
Classic.
So it just worked.
Yeah, it just worked.
Damn. Okay.
But fun fact, I actually did not need to do like all that funny XSS stuff. If I just send a GET request, the time on is in like a server header. But I didn't realize that until I was doing my slides.
Nice.
Yeah, I also read the article in FRAC, which was excellent. If you guys want to get even more detail on the exploit and how it works, you can find it in greater detail in the magazine. And I loved the creativity because very much so when you had that slide that was like challenges, right? I'm sure it seemed overwhelming, right? It was daunting.
It was not a fun time.
Yeah, and so I know that this often is the case when we're doing VR, when we're like, oh my gosh, should I just try to find something different? because all these constraints are ridiculous. Can you tell me a little bit about the process with your perseverance in deciding to go there versus, hey, maybe there's just something else that I need to do here, find a different bug?
Yeah, so it was mostly peer pressure. I had already told people that I found the file upload bug, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be easy to get RCE, and I did not want to go back on that. So that was the main driver for continuing this research.
Pride can be powerful.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you very much. Round of applause. Next up, we have RCECoaster by Shiloh and Rick.
I just want to butt in and say I'm pumped for this one. Super excited.
I particularly like that there are fashionable accessories in addition to a talk.
Let's see. Where are we? I can't see. Yeah, the most difficult part is always configuring displays.
Yeah, it's funny how many times we get the joke, like how many hackers does it take to like pull up slides, but
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint and printers.
Okay, there we go, there we go. So shoot. Give me 1 second.
That Ubuntu bug, I wonder how many instances of 1604 are.
Do we have audio for the presenter here?
If you need me to come over with Mike, just let me know.
Nah, it's fine. It's not important. Yeah, I'm logged into the audio cable, but not getting audio. It's fine. It's not that important. All right. Well, welcome, guys. Crash happened somewhere during the whole rendering cut. And first, the progress seems to jump to a completely bogus point. But with time for debugging, it's actually really easy to step back and figure out where did it crash. And we found it crashed in this kind of jump table. So normally you use a compiler and it generates a switch statement to generate to this type of jump table. It will be bounce checks. But in this case, because it's artisanal hand assembly, there's no bounds on this jump table, but we're indexing with a full byte. So we can go out of bounds on this jump table, and if we get insanely lucky, there might be a pointer there pointing back into our save game, and then we can just jump to shellcode. We are insanely lucky, and there is exactly one pointer there. So what we did, we used BindingJS API, just say, oh, my table's here. I have control over this region of memory, decode everything's pointers and see if there is one points to our data. And turns out there is exactly one such case. And this is only true for the exactity of the game. So it recompiled like this.
Thank you, Rick and Shiloh. And we are going to take another break.
A quick one before we do. The disclosure response from Atari, how many people have experienced that exact?
That was actually better than I was expecting. I'm not going to lie.
Right, got it. Cool. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go for a quick break and be. All right, and we're going to bring it back, start it off real quick with some Junkyard-themed trivia. So the first question for our trivia, and we have prizes up here. I'm not going to throw it because they're hard, so you'll have to come up and get it. But they're worth it. They're really cool. First trivia question. What was the most impactful target winner from last year's Junkyard? You don't have to have the brand. You just need to tell me what it is. traffic controller. There you go. Round of applause.
Hack the planet. Hack the planet.
Yeah, right. All right, we have whiskey stones, which you can't travel with because they're shaped like cyber bullets. Okay, here you go. All right, in 2022 and 2025, the FDA updated its guidance on the security and patching of what kind of systems due to the fact that they were known for being largely end-of-life due to burdensome certification requirements, just generic type. Yes. Medical devices. Come on up. Oh, all right. Well, we'll get it to you afterwards. All right. Yes, in fact, we were talking a little bit about this earlier. A 2020 research study found that about 83% of medical imaging devices, like MRIs and CT scanners, were running operating systems that were end-of-life or unsupported. All right, and our final question. In 2017, Microsoft released an out-of-band patch for Windows XP, despite it being EOL since 2014. This was in reaction to what malware that infected over 300,000 systems? WannaCry. Come on up. We only have 3 questions. All right, what was the name of the exploit that was used by this no staff?
No stuff.
There you go. Come on up. Eternal Blue. All right, and for you, we have a cyber bullet pen. Use it wisely. Those are pretty cool. All right, and then back to our show. So we're going to get started here with Flex Force by Anthony and Kiri. Take it away.
Are we on? Hello, hello, hello. So we are Flex Force Tread. So, my name's Anthony. I'm Threevil Iapolo. I graduated RIT in 2025, and I now work at IBM X-Force Red, Flex Force Tread. I have the WSAT Level 2 in Wines, and I'm a juggling enthusiast, even though I'm bad at it, and I have the disco shirt and theme for the juggling club.
I'm Kiri Query Lee. I also graduated from RIT and work at X-Force Red. I love mainframe hacking and everything about mainframes, and I'm also really into fashion.
So, quick disclaimer, we're not representing IBM with this. This is our own personal thing. It's just us. We're just having a fun time. Please don't be evil with this. We think it's actually kind of dangerous. And lastly, we think we're really funny. Our slide deck is going to reflect what we thought was awesome and couldn't contain ourselves what we're making. So if you don't find it funny, get a better sense of humor. So, treadmills. We needed an internship project, and we had all these ideas, and we couldn't think of anything. And I'm at the gym, and I need inspiration, and I'm walking on the treadmill. Why does it have a web browser? Why does it have Netflix? Does my treadmill really need Spotify? Has access to my TV? I have to log into all these accounts. I feel like this is a bit much. We'll make this our project. So, I don't know about you guys, it's come up at least once. Getting software like firmware dumps is kind of difficult, to me at least. I've never done it before, and I hadn't when we did this. And I couldn't, no, not doing that. We'll not be doing that.
So we thought instead, what if we can just get the code directly from the manufacturer? And a lot of these devices, although they're internet connected, also have the option for offline updates via USB. So you download the software and then just plug it in on USB. So that means we can download the software. So we do a little search and see if we can get the updates for the brand of treadmills that we're most interested in, pre-core. And we see that there are downloads available for their 3 smart console models. Unfortunately, to access these downloads, you need a username and a password. And we don't have that. So we do a little Google dorking and come up with their documentation, which just happens to be downloadable and include their username and password. So now we have our software for the console models that we're looking at. Yippee!
So what we get out of this is just some zip files. So we unzip them, And we have OTA files. And OTA files are over-the-air updates, so this is how they're updating these treadmills remotely. And they're typically for Android devices in the field. These are just, we find a bunch of images, and we look at what they are, and they're just Linux file systems that are being sent out to these treadmills.
So we start looking through the file systems, trying to decide what's different between our treadmill operating system and a normal Linux or Android operating system. And we start looking through the binaries, see if there's any interesting scripts. And right away we come across a startup script that sets a couple of firewall rules. And we think to ourselves, why on earth would a treadmill need SSH? So we start looking into this a little bit more. We pull up their config and notice that it's using keys instead of a password. And this is disappointing because you can brute force a password, but you can't really brute force a key. So we figure this might make it a lot more difficult for us to get in this way than we thought it would. But we still take a look at the authorized key files on all 3 versions of the console. And we notice that all of them have the same public key that will allow access. So anyone who has the one private key that lets you into all of these systems will be able to log in as root to every internet-connected treadmill. But surely we won't be able to get this private key. They should keep that locked down. We keep searching, and we go into the SSH directory on the end-of-life P80 console. And oopsie, we happen to notice both the public and the private key. At least we think that these are a corresponding key pair. So we do a little testing on our laptop. And this is, in fact, the key. We are so excited. We have never been this excited in our life, even though we're just testing it on the laptop. We haven't yet done it on a treadmill, because we have to get access to a treadmill first.
So we had some difficulty getting on the network. Just kidding, it was another thing you could look up and find the code. So when you buy these treadmills, you have to be able to install them. You have to do the networking. And you can just change those if you can Google the codes. Even like Google AI was helpful on this for the first time ever. And we had it. We could set it to whatever network we wanted. On that example, we changed it from a wired configuration to a wireless configuration, and we were on the same network. So you might be noticing, we actually don't have a treadmill on stage with us. So they're really hard to get. Some of these push like $14,000. We tried really hard with speaker ops, and getting it was kind of just out of the question. Fortunately, right outside the hotel, Now, I'm no detective, but that kind of looks like it. So, the real demo, do we have a volunteer from the audience? How about this guy? Now, Kiri, would you like to?
So, for stealth, I downloaded that SSH private key onto my phone, because then you can just, walk into the gym as a normal gym goer, start running on the treadmill of your gym worst enemy who's next to you, and you happen to already know the IP address of their treadmill. So you just SSH in, and we're connected as root to that treadmill. Now, he's running. What if...
Look at the console, pay close attention.
What if we hit him with a reboot?
Screen goes black. Oh no, he's and he's done for.
So for clarification, was that live?
Yes.
Yes.
It was actually
on
live.
FaceTime.
That was not a recording.
We got into the cameras. It's a whole thing. You had to be there. So we think that's actually really bad, and you should kind of be scared about that, because we found these treadmills here. I want to say the numbers in like tens of thousands, maybe in over 100,000 of these around the world. They're a really prominent model. And you could probably, we just watched someone break all of their legs in one button. That's kind of scary. People log into their accounts on these consoles, like Netflix, Spotify, all these different things are on there. And you could get lateral movement through these networks, because a lot of them are going to save their network configurations and just be able to hop back on the Wi-Fi network. So we think that's pretty bad. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone. Special thank yous to one of our co-researchers, Josh Merrill, the team who worked with us to fix all these, the hotel staff, speaker ops, and everyone else, and also the awesome Rainforest team from Slides Go. Awesome.
So did you try any other kinds of trolling?
Yeah. Yeah. Did we increase the speed and really screw someone up?
We really, really wanted to, and then we found the application that controlled it, and then the internship ended. And then like you go back to school, and it's like, oh, I have a class called Beers of the World. I can't really dedicate the time anymore. So,
Lame.
yeah.
In terms of that, so the kind of the chain of exploitation that you used, right? Like find, obviously bypass extracting the firmware, grab it down from the internet, find hard-coded creds, and then find them, you know, in a system, like based on kind of the testing that you guys are doing. Like how often do you actually see that?
I did a little bit more research on it in college for one of my classes, and a lot of places do it. A lot of them don't really have any protection. Some of them you need to have the product, and after that it's a free install. Sometimes, like most of the time you can go do it. A lot of times like they'll have it password protected or some things, but it's like full range of you can't to you totally can. And honestly, it's like it was like 50-50. So it's pretty cool that like you could just go do this.
I think this is a really funny avenue because gyms always have Wi-Fi that every person can access. Hotels always do. It's a really interesting means of attack. If you're on the same network, it's super easy to do that. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, super fun, guys. And you guys mentioned this was your first talk, so we really give it up for them. They did a great job.
Yeah, really well done.
I have one more question, maybe. So I know you said you didn't, have a ton of time, but did you think about this vendor makes a lot of other things like bikes and ellipticals? Did you think about other avenues or see if they have similar files?
They all use the same console. So yes, this attack will work on the bikes, the ellipticals, anything. It just, because it isn't automatically controlled like the treadmill belt through the console, it'll do the same thing, but it won't really have the same capacity.
It'll reboot, but you won't watch someone
it'll reboot, but you can still sit on the bike.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, what you're saying is that one key works.
That one key works on every single one of these treadmills that exists and hasn't been updated.
Hypothetically, of course.
Wow. All right. With that bombshell. Thank you very much, Anthony and Kiri. Quick announcement as our next speaker is coming up. We've found a money clip belonging to a Sebastian Wild McKay Smiley. If you lost it, please come to registration to retrieve it. Okay. Up next, we have Armageddon by TNR.
I was going to say, I'm kind of glad they didn't get a treadmill. Otherwise, they probably would have ended up on the demo, right?
I really wanted to see that.
I'm glad that we kept the theme of having at least one big device. Like last year, we had the pump it up machine, the DDR style machine. I think that those are just...
That really was live, right? Like,
Yes.
I know that they have those devices here, but that's very cool. Cute.
It was coordinated. That was somebody that they knew.
No, they were just creeping on some gym goer.
Cool. Cool. So hi everyone. My name is Luke. I also go by TNR, and this is my talk, Armageddon in the Junkyard. So a little bit of context of kind of how this stuff kind of came about. I've been doing cybersecurity for about 3 years now, and in that time, in my free time, I like to buy cheap things on AliExpress and hack them. I turn this into GitHub repos with all the exploit code, paged out articles, shout out, paged out, and I also have a blog that I'll shout out later. So I bought this as one of these projects, kind of expecting it to be some sort of RTOS or something nice and simple. Turned out to be running a full-blown Android build on an MT6580 chipset, so Mediatek, which is very, very old. So I got this out of the box, and the ADB shell was locked down on it. So I spent some time reverse engineering, and I eventually got to the point where I had an ADB shell by getting a code to unlock it. It was at this point, having absolutely no Linux kernel experience, that I was going to try and get a root shell on this thing. So I started off by auditing some kernel drivers, and one of the first ones that I came across was /dev/Mali. Now, for those of you who don't know, Mali is ARM's GPU. They open source their kernel drivers, so this talk is focusing on the oldest one, the UTGuard GPU kernel driver, that was open source until I reported the bug, and then they deleted it. So they fixed it, right? So some of these socks that they appear in is obviously the MT6580 and also the Kirin 620, which are the two devices that I brought with me today. But it also is in many more. So I'll run you through some code. So this is source code for the kernel driver, which was available. The intended usage is to call, so this is the ioctl. So what you do, you have dev Mali, you issue an ioctl. The intended command is Mali IOC mem alloc, which is going to allocate GPU memory. In the kernel, this is going to allocate a Mali mem allocation object that has a ref count. That's very important. This is basically just going to track the Mali memory on the GPU. We're interested in Mali IOC mem3. So this is going to call mem3 wrapper, which ends up calling this. This is going to take a provided virtual address and find the Mali mem allocation object in the kernel associated with that virtual address. It is then going to call Mali allocation unref, and this is where the bug is. So you have, it calls this Mali OSK atomic exec return, and if that's 0, it's going to clean up the Mali allocation object associated with the virtual address. What if it's not? So if the ref count's not 1, what happens? It's not 0. You've just decremented the ref count. Okay, that's not good. So why is that not good? It actually gives us a use after free. So if we do the following steps, we allocate some GPU memory using the Mali IOC mem alloc command that I showed you earlier. That's going to allocate and create a Mali mem allocation object in the kernel with the ref count set to 1. Then we're going to call mmap multiple times, which is going to increment the ref count, first of all, and set the VM private data to be a pointer to the Mali mem allocation object. Then we're going to use the bug and spam Mali IOC mem3, which is going to decrement that ref count unconditionally, as we just saw. And then if we call like munmap, or we just use anything that uses the VMA, that's a use after free, because the VM private data is pointing to freed memory, and we forced it to free it early. So there's two methods to exploit this. I am going to try and squeeze in both. Minka is the first one. I named it myself. It's a limited decrement primitive. So essentially, after the use after free, we have a bunch of dangling VMAs. We call munmap on those, and we actually use the bug as a primitive. So when there is something interesting that isn't 0 or 1 at that offset in the use after free memory, we can actually just decrement it. So we have a limited fixed offset decrement. However, we are obviously limited by the number of mmaps that we do in the first place. Pretty awful primitive, not gonna lie. That's my cat, Kevin. He's a good lad, I miss him a lot. And this is the translator after I kind of unlocked it and got the ADB shell on there, and I put Flappy Bird on there. So that is I've used Minka to exploit this to get a root shell. So I need to find an object that has something useful at the same offset that ref count is inside of Mali mem allocation, has to go in the same kmalloc cache as well. One of the first objects I looked at was ion buffer, which we can get allocated via /dev/ion. That has a pointer to an SG table at the offset of the ref count. There's this very cool blog. It is the Android Kernel Mitigations Obstacle Race. Go read it, it's cool. What's relevant here is that it tells us that if we can change that pointer to point to controlled memory, we can actually map arbitrary physical pages. which is very, very useful. So here is the exploit. Don't read all of it. It's a lot to take in. But right, so what we're interested in here is we want to groom the heap, so we want to shape the heap so that it looks like this. So we have the use after free ion buffer on the right with all the dangling pointers pointing to it. We have the green arrow, which is the legitimate SG table associated with the ion buffer. And before it, in kmalloc64, we have controlled data, which we pinned. We used a send message spray, and we pinned it in place using SG tables because kmalloc64 is the minimum cache size on Android. So that's what we want. We trigger the bug, so we do the mum maps. That's going to decrement that pointer. It's going to look like this. There's basically no mitigations on this thing. So we can just put the structure, the scatter list structure, which is in the SG table, into user space. We can map that corrupted ion buffer, and we get an arbitrary write and root. And because there's no PXN, we can just do the good old commit creds, prepare kernel cred null to get our root shell. So let's demonstrate that one. God, I hope this works. Yes, come on. All right. Okay. So you can see the kernel memory. We've just overwritten a function pointer and returned to user. Let me just do some swapsies. So, unfortunately, this method doesn't work on later versions of the driver. So this one was running R6P2. Later versions of the driver, they actually null out some very, very important things in the ion buffer, which just makes it completely broken. So I had to come up with a different method. This one is frals. It's a limited write primitive. Essentially, once you've done the free on the Mali mem allocation, you just spray a fake one over it with the ref count set to 1. Then on mummap, the ref count is going to hit 0. It's going to call Mali free allocation mem again. And we can actually get a write via something which should be familiar if you were paying attention.
You got 3.5 minutes.
Oh, God. So you've got list del. So this is your write primitive. And as we saw earlier, we have a write what where and a write where what, which is good enough for us in this case. But we also have to deal with the corrupted free list. That's my cat Kevin again. A good laugh. Yeah, this is the Huawei P8 Lite. It's based on a Kirin 620, which is 64-bit, and it's got a different GPU as well. It also has SE Linux and PXN. Because of PXN, we have to use a job chain, which is at the bottom. You cannot see it, but a load of gadgets. It's very impressive, I promise. And in the job chain, we want to fix the free list like so, because we're calling kfree twice on the same memory. So we just, in the job chain, do a kmalloc to get one of the looped entries and set the free list next pointer at the start of it to be null. You break the loop, you fix the double free issue. And then, yeah, we also deal with the enforcing stuff, and we call the same code, commit creds, prepare kernel cred null, in the job chain to get our root shell. So yeah, that's the second one. It's a lot easier. Oh, and for the spray, we use add key, but that doesn't really, yeah. Oh, I need to demo this one. This one's quick. Boom. Okay, so considering impact, the number starts at 10 million, and this is a junkyard, so we're pretending e-waste doesn't exist. I wrote an exploit for this one as well. There's loads of these Soyuz phones out there that are super cheap and are based on the MT6580. Pretty bad bug. Probably wouldn't want to ship that, but okay. I believe that if it uses an UNKYARD GPU and it has that function in it, Mali allocation unref, it's vulnerable. So you've got like 3D printers, cheap tablets. There's an Amazon product in there if you want to go find it, and Orange Pies and stuff like that. So loads of stuff.
2-minute warning.
And also it's in here. I believe that's the source of all the Mediatek issues. So they might want to fix that. Yeah, so I think that's probably the reason a lot of these AliExpress devices have this bug. It's all public, so check out this repo. It's got all the exploits in there. Go run them, go write your own. There's loads of stuff to hack. This is the blog. Go read it. It's very detailed, a lot more exploits. If you want to learn some Linux kernel stuff like I did, go read that. It's cool. And yeah, that's everything from me. Thank you very much for watching, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Any questions, if we've got time?
First off, I just want to say that it's clear that within the time slot, we cannot appreciate fully all the amazing technical prowess and challenges you went through. So congrats on that.
Thank
Just
you.
it felt really good also on the second device to get both of them.
Yeah.
What,
5 exploits in the end, and they all work. I was going to try and fit them all in, but you're not fitting that in 12 minutes.
That's great. What do you think is your preferred method, like your preferred use case now that you have complete ownership of that hardware?
I don't know, man. I just kind of like seeing the hashtag. But I mean, I guess some like old tablets, like the old Huawei tablets. Like I saw someone on some forum complaining there was no way to root them. So you could use this if you wanted to port the exploit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, congrats.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
There was a lot there to digest in that amount of time. I really want to look it up now. I have a note.
Yeah, great work, TNR. As we transition them off the stage, next we have Quacking Between the Lines by Zaratec. I did enjoy that modest chop chain included in the second exploit, just 20, 30 gadgets or so.
Literally, that's what I want to look at the most.
Oh, there we go. Telepathy.
They can look at the scanners, but honestly, my exploit is going to be handheld, so it won't be as useful. All right, cool. Let's get started. Okay. Hi, I'm Carolina Zarate, aka Zaratec, and this is Hacking Between the Lines. I'm very excited to show you my lovely barcode scanners. I'm more excited, honestly, to get rid of them because they have taken up so much space on my desk for so long. And I'm sure the people around me are even more excited to not be hearing the incessant quacking for a while. So why quacking? Let's start with, first of all, a riddle. What doesn't look like a duck, doesn't swim like a duck, but does quack like a duck? The answer is my barcode scanners. And so those of you that actually read the agenda may have noticed that the title of the presentation is Quacking Between the Lines, not Hacking Between the Lines. I'm going to do something a bit weird and backwards, and I'm actually going to start out the presentation with exploiting the device because I'm going to turn my device into a presentation clicker because I have so many of them, I might as well put them to good use, right? So we will do this live, and then if anything goes wrong, I know it's going to go wrong from the very beginning, which is cool and great. So first of all, I will exploit this to overwrite the sound to a duck noise, if you can hear that. What they normally sound like is this awful, sad, beeping noise. It's hard to know if you can actually hear it, but that is essentially what they sound like. And on top of that, I'm going to exploit it so that way it calls back to my laptop, which will be listening and act as a clicker. So now anytime I scan, if you look at the top right-hand corner, it will click for me and go to the next slide. On top of that, because Mark here just gets to call time and nothing else, we're going to make it a little fun for him. So whereas this just has a sad click noise, I'm going to overwrite it to make a chicken noise, because chickens are also cool too, right? And so instead of calling time, you can just scan something. So I'm going to give you a book. And it will make a fun chicken noise, like that. Enjoy. Okay. Use these for something, guys. Anyways, back to the presentation. So, quacking between the lines. What did I do? This is going to happen every slide, guys. So these are MC2180 barcode scanners. They were made by Motorola or Zebra. They come in 1D or 2D scanner flavors. This one in particular is a 1D scanner, so it can't do like QR codes, but it does do like normie barcodes. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, so remote attack surface, yay. In particular, because these are meant to be used in an industrial setting, they have mics and speakers, so to be used like as a walkie-talkie. That's interesting. And the underlying operating system is Windows CE 6.0. Notably, they come built in with this thing called data wedge. And so Zebra, when they created these barcode scanners, they wanted to make it really easy to do custom development on these devices, so that way you could write an application that was useful for your business. So you could figure out, like, I want these barcodes to be stored in a spreadsheet or sent off to the server or whatever you wanted. To make this easy, they created data wedge to be a codeless solution to scanning data. What happens is data wedge takes care of the barcode scanning and pasting the barcode data into the foreground application. Hello? Okay. Into the foreground application. And so all the developer has to do is just worry about the application and having a text box field for the data to be pasted in. If you look on the right-hand side, that is the settings app. So you would go write your custom application, and then you would configure the settings to work with your application. These are things like the audio, if you wanted like to prefix or postfix the barcode data, et cetera. Looking at this, I was like, oh, this is nice and cool. And looking at open ports, I saw that there was like, this one, and looked into it and saw, oh, it's like related to the settings app. Why does it like call out to an open port? The reason is because it is actually a web app. So whereas some normal person would just write like a .NET app to have a settings app, this person wrote a custom HTML JavaScript web app that pops a browser on the device and then interacts with a service on this device over HTTP. So the way that the settings app works is it will issue a GET request to the service to get the configuration files. The service will do a read file, and then you will go edit your settings. And when you're done, that data will then be sent back to the service over a post or put request, which will then write the file. So this is a read-write, and the server gets no control over what is read and written and where it's read and written, because the path in the HTTP request is the path that the files are read and written to. Okay. On top of this, this service, DWHTTPD, is bound to all interfaces, and there's no authentication, so as long as I'm on the same network as these lovely barcode scanners, I can issue the same HTTP GET and POST requests to read and write files. However, the file reads and writes are only able to be done within a certain directory tree. So they do actually check for path traversal. On top of that, file names must have a supported extension. So it must be something like XML, JPEG, etc. This is expected because the app is meant to work with the configuration files, which are XML files. So I have this cool arbitrary read-write constrained, but like, how do I turn that into execution? And for a bit, I was kind of stuck at like, okay, this is nice, but like, what do I do with this? Surprisingly, a lot. So what I looked at first was the configuration files, right? The configuration files are the things I can touch. They're primarily what are located in this directory. I can't write an executable as is, like a .exe, but I can write an XML file, which is actually an exe, and maybe do something to that. Two things in particular that I noted in the configuration is one, you could write a scan startup app. The scan startup app is meant to be some executable on the device that gets popped when you scan from the desktop. And it's meant for like a developer when they write their custom application to point it to that, so that way it pops it open and then pastes the barcode data in it. You can also set a barcode prefix. This is, I don't know what you would normally use this for, but it's like if you wanted data in front of your barcode. For us, we can use it for command injection, because what if we set the scan startup app to command.exe, set the prefix to some commands we wanted to run, which can include new lines, and then comment out, the barcode data that we just don't care about. That sounds cool to me. So this is essentially what it would look like. You would send your commands, split them up with new lines. So in our case, we would take the XML malicious file, we would turn it into a .exe file, and then run it. Cool, we get execution. However, coming in clutch, Zebra actually messed up the way that they check for file extensions. So whereas initially I thought, I can't write exe, thank you. Whereas initially I thought, which minutes is that? Thank you, okay. So initially what I thought was, I can't bypass this file extension. All I have to do is deal with this command.exe. Actually, their file extension check checks for the first period, not the last period. And so something like evil.xml.exe is actually considered okay, which obviously not. This means that I can just directly write an exe file and then set the scan startup app to point to it. And then when someone scans it, then it will trigger execution. So why is this better than the previous way? This is better because what I failed to mention is when it pops the application, it waits up to like 5 seconds or so before it pastes the barcode data. And this is so that they could accommodate different applications that might take a while to spin up, like their browser app. So basically what would happen is you would pop cmd.exe and you would get command injection in there, but it would take like someone looking at it being like, why is cmd.exe open, staring at it for like 5 to 10 seconds until it gets pasted in. So super obvious and not very useful. This is way better because they just scan it, you get execution, done. Okay. So that means that this is a better way for me to get execution. And so my barcode-driven PowerPoint presentation is making use of that. So the steps that I took to get this nice clicker for you is, first of all, I would do an arbitrary write of the executable, which is the callback executable. I read the configuration files, and I only modify the things that are needed to change. So in particular, I set the scan startup app to point to this executable file. And then when the user comes along and scans a barcode, which I won't because that will click, it will trigger the scan startup app, run it, and then do the network callback and click it. Thank you. Cool, okay. So obviously this is a very silly example. I am just using this as a presentation clicker because I have so many of them. But like, what does this mean in the real world? These are used in industrial settings. They're used in grocery stores. I'm sure you've probably seen like Giant or whatever your grocery chain is. We'll have these for like scan and click. But essentially the idea is like no one's going to expect these to be hackable, and they can be in whatever industrial setting. They probably are not going to be changed frequently, and so they provide a foothold into these networks. If you really cared, the fact that you can have mics on these means that you just write an executable that just listens for audio. So if you have a very sensitive industrial setting where they're doing scanning of stuff, then like you can just be collecting audio in those places. So that's pretty much it. Thank you for joining me. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a bigger flex of the reliability of your exploit.
I was sweating really hard, but I was like, damn, I got to do this because I need slides to click through it.
It was insane.
It was ballsy and it worked.
I love the creativity and especially how you engaged us with the quacking noise and even having the MC play along, which is awesome.
It was at the cost of the sanity of everyone around me prepping for this presentation, though.
Yeah, I can't imagine how many quacking noise during the development of the exploit you listened to.
A lot.
Yeah, so super fun, awesome. And I've also, in my mind, in my hacking journey, I've often thought about, man, how cool it would be to have a barcode scanner be part of a point of entry. And so the fact that we're seeing something like that now is really fun for me.
It was super funny because someone in the speaker ops room was just like, oh, we should have like barcode scanners for next year. I was like, hey guys, I'm doing a junkyard presentation. These are gonna be done.
So fun.
So I definitely, like when I first saw barcode scanner, I was like, oh, I wonder if the actual barcode is gonna trigger something down the line. And I actually love that it was the device itself. And I was not expecting that. Loved the quacking. And I guess one of my core questions here is maybe why, but mostly like, how did you get there, right? What made you think, okay, this seems like a good attack vector? What made you think like, everyone uses barcode scanners, why not these?
My criteria for how I picked the devices, if that's like what you're getting at, was like I wanted something that I hadn't touched before. So I do a bunch of Windows, but I've never done Windows CE, and they are very similar, but they're very different. It is also super old and crusty. So a sizable amount of my time was dealing with the development tool chain, which took so much of Wayback, like the Wayback Machine. You need like Visual Studio, like 2005, 2009, tons of like tools that like you really can't get anymore, like SDKs and that sort of thing. So that was like kind of interesting, like going through that process. And then I wanted something that also had a remote attack surface, which these met, had firmware available online, which these met. And then also were available on eBay, which these were. I actually almost went with a different device, but it got sold out, so I went with these.
Wow, great presentation. And we might be next year just switching to quackers instead of me saying things. All right, thank you so much, zaratec.
Thanks.
Very nice. Okay, and our next presentation, we're going to try and get it lined up. We have one speaker who is going to attempt to remotely dial in to demonstrate, to give their presentation and demonstrate their exploit. So it might take a moment. While that's happening, can I get a round of applause for the Junkyard team who's making this happen? This is also some of the same folks who are basically our CFP board for the Junkyard submissions, because we had more submissions than we had slots this year. And I got to say, it's been amazing. Judges, any thoughts?
I was going to shout out the trolley people on the last one, but yeah, I mean, big +1 to everyone involved behind the scenes. It's so cool seeing like the response and kind of having watched this played out since we announced it. Like last year, there was a pretty like simple theme of the types of devices that people came up with and used, and then there was a Dance Dance Revolution machine and a traffic light controller, which was obviously a standout. This year, just seeing the diversity of operating systems, the diversity of attack surfaces, like the different kind of research techniques and kill chains that got put together. Obviously, like the Quack is that's a new one as well. So just thinking about getting I guess the opportunity to contrast last year with this one, it's insane.
Yeah, I got to say, I feel like this year was really the dream that we had starting Junkyard, excuse me. So
plus the lights are on, so there's that.
Well, it's just super exciting to be like, oh, that was cool. I didn't think about that. What else can I do? So it's really, I don't know, extra exciting when it's different things you've never looked at, or maybe the presenters have never looked at, and everyone's kind of taking a chance, looking at something new, doing something different, and getting to the root of like discovery and the excitement of hacking.
Yeah, it's really inspiring. The variety of devices also, I think, encourages a lower threshold for entry point for researchers in general. And I love how much it fits with the theme of what we're trying to achieve at Junkyard, which is remembering the love of the game, the joy of it all, embracing curiosity. So I'm really excited.
And being kind of silly sometimes as well, because that's so fun. That's part of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a quick announcement here. We actually have a bunch of extra Disco frac magazines up here. So after this presentation, if you'd like to come up and grab one, if you didn't find one already, they're up here. And on the other line, so the presentation that we have coming up is Lucky 7 by Haddock. Just as a heads up to Haddock and everybody else, we do have to conclude at 4:55 so that the closing ceremonies can happen.
Will you make a chicken sound for us?
Okay.
Sure. Should I be reading some lore? I don't know what to say right now. Testing 1 2 1 2. Good. Okay.
Whenever you're ready, take it away.
Oh, am I good to go?
You're good to go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Axel. I'm a senior security engineer at Trail of Bits. Before I start my presentation, I just wanted to give a couple shout outs. Shout out to the volunteers for being so flexible. I'm really glad to still be able to do this presentation remotely. And for those of you that were there for the Ion Torrent presentation, shout out to Alan for stepping up to the plate there to do my part of the presentation. It's not an easy thing to do. And with that, I actually have the exploit demo for the Ion Torrent ready to go because we couldn't get it working live. So,
very nice.
All right. Now on to the presentation. All right. So, yep, like I said, I'm Axel. I'm going to be presenting Lucky 7. This is a local privilege escalation vulnerability on Windows 7. For some background, Windows 7 was released in 2009, end of life in 2015, and then actually supported by Microsoft for enterprise customers up until 2020. Surprisingly, Windows 7 still holds about 4% of the desktop market share, according to StatCounter, however accurate that is. And yeah, I'd hope that this is just hobbyists and enthusiasts, but honestly, this ends up being things like medical devices, running these end-of-life operating systems. And yeah, just in the interest of full disclosure, the vulnerability I'm going to be talking about was actually a bug collision with CVE 2025-29824. So the Windows component that I'm going to be focusing on is the common log file system. This is a high-performance, transaction-safe logging subsystem in Windows. It's essentially there for efficient, reliable logging for various Windows components. It's been the target of a lot of security research because it parses base log files, and which contain like very, very complex metadata structures, a lot of weird pointers everywhere. So it's been the target of a lot of security research. And it's also used in a ton throughout the Windows ecosystem. So the transactional registry, transactional NTFS, and Windows Update. Before I dive into the bug, I'm going to talk a little bit about Windows internals just to catch everybody up. So how do you actually interact with the CLFS? Well, you'll have your application called pwn.exe, which will load a library called CLFS w32.dll. Then you can invoke some of the APIs that the library exposes, and those APIs will open handles and interact with the CLFS device that's exposed by the clfs.sys kernel driver. And that kernel driver exposes a lot of IRP major function handlers that you can interact with. So notably, you have the IRP mjcreate, which is for opening handles, close, which is for releasing those handles, cleanup, which is fired when the last user mode handle is closed. And then you also have the device control major code, which is responsible for handling a variety of ioctals. And so this is kind of high level how you interact with CLFS. But now let's get into the bug. And the bug stems from a very small distinction between the difference between the cleanup handler and the close handler, or IRP major codes. The cleanup handler is fired when the handle is released, but not all the outstanding I/O requests have finished. Whereas the close handler is invoked when all the outstanding I/O requests have been completed and there are no more handles to the device. And so we can take a look at this cleanup handler, and it's fairly straightforward. It pulls the fscontext2 object from the file object and then calls a deconstructor on that fscontext2 object.
2 minute warning.
There's a couple events that take place in the deconstructor. I've kind of slimmed it down. But basically, we increment the reference count. We check whether we can cache the fscontext2 object in this look-aside list for performance reasons so that we don't have to reallocate it every time. And then if that look-aside list is filled, which is a max of 4, we free the fscontext2 object. The problem here is that the fscontext2 structure is a per handle structure, which means that if there are multiple threads accessing the same handle in that cleanup routine, they might be referencing the freed fscontext2 object. So what does that look like? Like how do you exploit this bug? How do you trigger it? Well, thread A is going to invoke the close handle API on the handle, while thread B uses device IO control to invoke some ioctals using the same handle. The kernel is going to dispatch the request to the cleanup handler, whereas for thread B, the kernel is going to dispatch it to the ioctal handler. In that deconstructor function, fscontext2's ref count is decremented, whereas at the same time, it's being incremented somewhere else in a different ioctal handler. As that's happening, the fscontext2 object is freed, and at the same time, on thread B, fscontext2 might be used for something else. And so this gives us like a small window where we can hopefully replace the fs2 context object before it gets used again by thread B. And we can do this by using a third thread to spray name pipes. And this is a technique that was initially released by Alex Ionescu, where you can use name pipe buffer entries to spray on the non-page pool. But we'll get into that in a bit.
Hey, Axel, we got to wrap it up.
Oh, okay. But yeah, essentially, we find the exploit target, which in this case has 3 calls. We can replace the fscontext2 object and change the structure of the keyword pointer to point to our shellcode, which can steal tokens and give us a root shell. I'll just do the POC quickly. Okay, and that's our system shell.
All right, great job. Any last words, Axel? He's fine, don't worry. In conclusion, do you have anything that you wanted to say? Maybe he can't hear me. Okay. Thanks very much, Axel. Great job. Round of applause. Okay, and with that, we are going to close up Junkyard, and closing ceremonies is next. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you to our judges for making this fun and a great experience. Yes, round of applause for the judges, please. Thank you.